Here. Hey, what happened to my good pen again? Oh, I'm missing
You left it at the station.
it. Like,
Ready? Okay. Got it. Thank y'all for being here. I'm going to open this meeting. The time is now 1:33, and it is June the 18th. And we're here for the third meeting of the collective bargaining session between the City of Alice and the Alice Professional Firefighters Association, IAFF Local 4102. On behalf of the association is Mr. Rafael Torres, Mr. Mark Hill, Mr. Cody Scheibel, and Mr. Rafael Salinas. On behalf of the city is Mr. Rick Novato, myself, Michael Esparza, Ms. Diana Lopez, Ms. B. Moreno, and Mr. Roland Ramos.
and we got copies of a counter circulating.
There's one extra.
Thanks.
It was. Sure, real quick.
Yeah, I would start that way.
Yeah, we're ready.
Y'all have our counter proposals from there. We were thinking about TAing some items that both sides didn't want to change or anything like that, like Article 1, 2, and 3.
Do you want to did you want to run down the list and
Oh,
just
yeah.
talk about
Definitely do
what
that.
stays the same?
Okay.
And what's still, I mean, is that what you're proposing?
We were looking at maybe going ahead and going through and identifying the articles that could be TA'd. And in the interim, as we're going through that, where we get to an article that we have a counter or a change, we'll address that. Is that
Yeah.
kind of where we wanted to go? So in Article 1, 2, and 3, there was no proposed changes.
Just besides,
Yeah, I think even ours was, that those are going to be.
it was only like a single, went from union to association.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those are not in controversy.
Okay.
Article 4, we're proposing pretty much to keep, our counter proposal is to keep the same language as the old contract. And I know y'all had went with a 2-year term. We're proposing a 3-year term, and then also keeping the evergreen in place.
So section 1 and 2 of that is fine.
Yes. 1 and 2 stays the same, section 3 is changed, and section 4 stays the same as the old contract.
Yeah, section 4 being the evergreen clause.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, well, we'll check off on section 1 and 2 only at this time.
Any other questions on Article 4?
No.
Section 5, or Article 5, there's no changes on your part or our part, so.
Yeah, I think that's true for 5, 6, and 7, no?
Yes.
And
And
8
8.
as well?
And 8.
Okay. Goes off the table.
Article 9, we're proposing just to keep the old language from the old contract, section 1.
Okay, we'll leave that one open right now.
Hiring process, Article 10, I believe stays the same. There was nothing from y'all on it.
We didn't have anything on ours either, so that's fine.
Article 11, since it's a 3-year contract, we're proposing a 2% each year increase.
To the table,
Yes. Across the table.
okay.
And then section 2, which we don't have the attachments, but I believe y'all have all the numbers to run that or software. Section 3, just unfreezing the steps, being able to move up. You shall receive a step increase on the anniversary date of the higher promotion as applicable and calculated as of the first full pay period thereafter. And then leaving the cost of living increase the same language as the old contract.
Well, obviously, Article 11 is the key article, so we'll leave that open for right now.
The economic relief clause, it was at 5. I believe y'all came with a 1%. We're proposing a 3.5. But also with the language, if the parties are unable to come to an agreement within 60 calendar days, this agreement shall remain in full effect for the term of the contract.
Okay, we'll discuss that when we caucus.
Article 13, no changes either side.
Yeah, we're good with that.
The supplemental pays, the way we changed it, it was, I believe, under incentive pays on the old article. And I believe y'all had submitted a education certification assignment pay.
So basically, you're just calling them supplemental pays instead.
And defining, yeah, each one of them as,
Defining, and it would be cert pay, ed pay, and
Instructor pay.
and assignment pay.
yes, and then if you have that cert, you're able to get each of them.
Yeah, but the
Obviously-
numbers are the same.
Yeah, yes, sir. And then the assignment pay, we're proposing just cutting down on some of the language and just, assignments when made shall be compensated at the following rate, which would be that inspector pay. So if the chief gives the assignment out, then that's when you start compensating.
So on instructor pay, I think we had contemplated the instructor pay
To be under
to
assignment,
be if you're assigned to be an instructor. And you're saying,
have its own separate, kind of the way it is now, but
and so what is it that triggers that? Is there a certification to be an
yes,
instructor?
you have to actually go
So-
get, it's a state certification.
Okay, so it's a type of certification.
Yeah.
So you're saying if you have that certification, you submit proof of it to
Yes.
payroll, and then that's what you get, as opposed to an assignment where you only get it if you have it. If you're
If you're assigned it, yeah.
If you're assigned,
So you
yeah.
might have the certification, but if you're not using it, if you're not
Mhm.
assigned to it, you don't get it under our model. But under
It's
yours,
only
just the
assigned.
fact that you have it,
Yes.
you get it. And then if you are in fact assigned, you don't get anything else.
Not with instructor.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you might have the certification for instructor, but you may not be,
Assigned
in
it.
fact, using instructor, assigned to do instructor duties.
Under,
You're talking, under our proposal, we've got, if you've got the instructor certification, you'll get
You get the
allowance.
pay whether you're actually
Well, I mean,
doing instructor
I
duties.
think what the city, what they're looking at is what's the difference between having an instructor, being assigned instructor, and why should everybody else get the certification fee for instructing? Do you guys have assigned instructors to your training academy?
Everybody, everybody's gone through the class and they've been
Everybody was mandated to take this class a couple of years ago.
several years ago, yeah.
But so who is assigned to training? Is everybody assigned to training?
I know
Any point in time,
years
yeah.
ago it was put out so many, captains did so much of the training, lieutenants did so much, and then everyone else that was certified filled in the gap, but I don't have that email.
And that's the only, I'm just trying to clarify the mechanics of it, okay? So what you're saying is if I have a instructor certificate,
Yeah,
then I get this pay just because I have the instructor certificate.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter if I'm in fact instructing.
Well, that's the fact, that is they're used throughout the department to instruct at some time or another.
Sometime or another.
Yeah, there's not just like a training academy. There's not just one person that trains. Everybody in the department at some point during their career and throughout the month will train and be responsible
At some
for
point in
aspect
time.
of training. Yeah.
And there's no specific assignment to that. You're just, I guess you're just called in to fulfill that function.
Right.
And it's a mixed deal. It's different people are doing it at different times.
Correct.
And it shifts around. Okay. And then, so then the fire inspector would be the only assignment that
Yes.
exists in the department.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so the fire inspector would be the person who is the fire marshal is not necessarily the fire inspector.
I mean,
One of them.
he's
But
one, yeah.
If for some reason he needs to, if he's backlogged on his inspections or something like that, and he needs assistance, if, you know, we've got that fire inspector certification and he says, hey, I need you to go help me.
I know, like,
He can
the
assign
hospital's a
somebody-
big one that takes 2 weeks to do, like,
Yeah.
so to say, we have the hospital coming up, I need one guy, and I'm assigning you to it, then he would get,
So how many assignment slots are there
that's
under your
up to
proposal?
y'all.
That was left up open.
Open, but
November.
once it's assigned, then it's gonna get paid. So if y'all decide 0, or if y'all decide 3, 5, 10, whatever,
I see,
it's up to the city on that,
I see,
or the fire chief.
I see, okay. I understand. Y'all understand what he's saying about how this works? Okay, 15 stays the same?
Yes,
Holidays is in discussion,
uh,
or no, or what do you?
we're
propose?
proposing keep the same language from the old contract on holidays,
Uh-huh.
but adding the holiday leave buyback program to help offset the liability, bring it down. It was pretty much the same language for the vacation, but keep it at 50,000, and we're even willing to include, you know, all the associated costs with that, which I believe you had costed it out, Dana, at one point.
So, first proposal was the base amount, city responsible for all add-ins. You're saying at no time will it go over the 50?
Yes,
To
and
include-
it was, what was it, 57, I think, was the total cost afterwards?
For which one, vacation or sick?
Yes, vacation.
Give me a minute. Based on your first proposal with the add-ins from the city, it was 57,857.
On holidays, you're basically saying leave it the way it's been,
Yes.
right?
Yes, with the option to sell back to help.
Huh?
With the option to sell back on Article 17.
On Article 17, okay. And what about our proposal on those accrued holiday hours?
To no longer accrue? Accrual? This was our counter with, but putting in the holiday leave buyback.
Okay, so your proposal is that they just get bought out.
Up to 24 hours, and it's up to each individual.
But they would no longer accrue?
No, it would be it would be the same language as the old contract.
It would still be
So
accrued.
it would
Yes.
still be accruing.
Okay, so our proposal, which was lately numbered 18, about about, you know, freezing that and stopping that is rejected.
Yes,
Is that right?
yes.
Well, it's not really rejected, it's counter-proposed with this program, which in essence, you're kind of freezing, if you buy them out at this point, you're freezing that at that juncture. And it's not everything that y'all wanted, but it is a step towards that.
Okay, because that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that they won't, we buy them out, we pay for them, which of course we can do now.
Yeah.
We don't need a contract agreement to do that. We could do that, but they would still accrue. That bank would continue to accrue.
If they're not selling back. Because
There was
you only accrue 144 hours usually in a year. You're able to sell back 288. So in essence, every year you're knocking off 100 of your balance if you're selling the full amount.
Okay. Why don't you explain again to the group and the public how the Holiday Bank works
Oh, you're
and
talking.
where it came from? Because I think that's what we're trying to fix, is
Okay.
this Holiday Bank. Okay. So
Process in place right now is city designated holidays for the fire department. 12 are a benefit payable to the department, whether they work or don't work at their base
those are true
rate of-
holiday hours.
True holiday benefit hours.
Okay.
If they are physically working the day of a holiday, they are paid up to a maximum of 12 at time and a half. So somebody who is on shift is receiving 12 benefit hours and 12 at time and a half.
When you
for
say
physically
benefit, that's
working.
paid hours.
Paid hours, yes.
It's paid out.
So that equals 2.5.
Okay. Plus,
Plus, they receive an accrual of 12 that goes into a bank, we call the holiday bank, that they can take at a later date with proper authorization, or upon separation from the city, that bank is paid in its entirety at the rate of pay the firefighter is at that moment in time when they separate from the
upon
city.
separation.
Yes, sir.
So if they don't work on the holiday period, do they get the holiday bank hours?
Yes, sir.
Regardless?
Regardless, if they are not working that day, they do receive the 12 hours accrued into the bank to take at a later date with the same process for separation.
So if they do work, they earn 3.5 times for that period because they got the holiday pay, they've got the hours worked at time and a half, and they get the hours deposited into the bank. So for those 12 hours, the city's paying 3.5 times because the hours worked are time and a half, right? I mean, is that what y'all are doing?
Very good, great.
Okay. Now, is that correct? I mean, do y'all agree that that's what's been happening? That's my understanding of how it's been working. Do y'all concur with that's how y'all are getting paid?
You're getting paid at 1.5 and then.
I don't think they looked at it, because when we talked about it earlier previously, that's not what we understood it to be.
Okay. What do you understand it? I mean, it's.
Well, this is
should
the
be
first
pretty-
time, I mean, given that we met on this particular proposal last, whenever it was, I don't think it was said there was 3.5 times the amount.
No, the same language was used.
No,
the
that's why we
benefit.
have this, that we had that proposal, because we're saying there's this practice of this holiday bank, which is being paid out and which is growing, and it's a liability for the city that they're trying to get under control. And when we gave you our proposal, our accrued holiday hours new, it was surrounding this practice, which is a similar practice that what had happened with the police, which was resolved, and we're seeking to resolve this practice with the fire department as well. And so I just, you know, this is my understanding of the mechanics of how it's worked, and it's something that got started several administrations ago before I was here, and it just, you know, hasn't gone away. So we're just trying to correct it's unaffordable. Okay, it's unaffordable, and we're just trying to get something new in place. But my question to y'all is, this is my understanding of how the mechanics of this holiday bank is working, and so do you have, I mean, do you agree or disagree, or you don't know, or you don't, you know, y'all don't check, or it seems right or doesn't seem right? Because it seems like we should be able to verify pretty easily what it is that's happening.
So you just so I'm clear, because I didn't have it written down last time, you're stating that the holiday pay the way it is now creates a 3.5 time liability for the city when an employee works.
When they are physically working on shift, or even if they're called in or held over.
Right, when they're working.
Physically
When they're working.
They are receiving the benefit at base pay, the physical hours at 1.5 times their base rate of pay.
Whoa,
and
let
they
me
are
stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. So you're saying they're receiving the benefit at base pay.
Yes.
What benefit are you talking
The
about?
holiday benefit.
Okay, so
Holiday pay.
they're accruing the hours
Sir,
of.
it's separate. It is 12 hours at $12 an hour, that's what they're making. Physical hours worked at
Okay,
1.5
they're
that
receiving 12 hours.
And that's only for 12 hours, correct?
Well, is it, okay, let me stop you right there. Is it, Diana, is it their hourly rate, or is it only base?
Their hourly rate.
Oh, their hourly rate. So it's it's the base plus the supplemental pay converted to an hourly rate, the FLSA hourly rate.
It's their base rate of pay. If they make $10 an hour, it's at $10 an hour. It's not the FLSA with the add-ons. When we calculate overtime, that is taken into account.
Okay, so you calculate this differently than you calculate OT.
Yes, sir.
Because OT requires you to take into
Correct.
account the
All
add-on
the add-ons
pays.
and everything else.
Okay, so what is it you're using for the hourly rate for this holiday thing? The base only?
Base.
So the
Base,
table.
Table, yes, sir.
And the add-on pays are not part of that?
So, for example, a firefighter who's making $10 would receive 12 of holiday benefit, that's the accrual, the pay code we use, at $10. They would receive 12 additional holiday premium at 1.5 times $10. And then they will bank 12 hours to take at a later date.
At what rate?
No rate.
No,
It is
but I mean,
banked.
it has a dollar value on it.
It's banked at whatever rate there are at that point. However, when they separate, and this has been a practice through the city for some time, we have firefighters that begin and stay with us very many number of years, and they're at $10 an hour. They rise through the ranks, and upon separation, they could be a lieutenant or a captain. Although they banked at $10 an hour, rising through the ranks and going through the pace tables, they are leaving at $19 or $20 an hour. That entire bank is being paid at that rate of pay when they leave.
Right, I get that. I still don't see the 3.5 times, because you're saying base pay, and then you're going to time and a half pay, and then, so if you're gonna get time and a half, pay, it's just 12 hours, correct?
Yes, sir, that's how we
Okay, so-
define a day.
So the individual comes to work, scheduled or called in. They come to work. And let's just use scheduled for sake of your discussion. They come in and they're making, for the first 12 hours, because that's the holiday, I guess, time and a half.
They're
if that-
making their base rate plus 1.5 times. So 2.5 times in those first 12 hours that they are physically working.
And in addition, they get the banked.
How is that even possible? Is that the way you guys get calculated?
You get holiday benefit,
I'd like to
which
see
takes
a
place.
I'd like for them to
Instead-
show me their check stubs.
Instead of getting regular pay, they just code it holiday benefit. So
Right.
you're getting paid for what you work. It's not an added benefit on your regular pay.
Right, that's
So
what
that's
you're
where we're
saying.
confused, where you're getting 3.5.
That would be 2.5.
Because it's your holiday benefit, which is just you working regular. They're just coding it holiday, and then you work your extra 12 hours of time and a half, because it's a 24-hour shift. And then they give you the 12 accrual.
The 12 banked,
The 12
Accrual.
bank,
so that's the 3.
which at some point gets converted to dollars.
But our
I mean,
question
it
is
can be,
3.5 times, because it's 12 benefit. Whether you was a holiday or not, you're getting 12. You're just coding it benefit, so it's not. You're making it seem like you're getting it on top of 12 hours of regular
Yeah.
pay.
It's not. I mean, whether I come to work, if I'm scheduled to work and I work on a holiday, I'm gonna get what I'm gonna make 1.5 times. And then, yes, I'm gonna bank that 12 hours, 2.5 times, if you wanna go a day and a half. Words just don't make the extra day of time. Just because you're calling it a base pay of this, so you're saying that they're gonna get, so if I'm gonna work a holiday, I'm essentially making, if I'm making $10 an hour, I'll just use I'm gonna be making $25 an hour. Is what I should be making according to what you're saying, because there's the base pay, and then there's the time and a half for the 12 hours. So for those first 12 hours, I'm making $25 an hour. Plus I'm getting 12 hours added to my bank, my holiday bank.
right,
So that would be the 3.5 times.
right.
That's not what's happening, is it?
That's the way they're being paid and coded.
So they're getting paid $25 an hour, the $10 an hour, their base, plus a time and a half, that's 15. So that's gonna be sandwiched on top? How's that?
Sandwich
What do you
on
mean
top of
sandwich
what?
Wow, if you're working, and you're scheduled hours to work, okay? And I'm coming in and I'm working at, let's just take the FLSA, just say I'm within my cycle and everything else. I'm gonna get $10 an hour normally. That's my normal base hourly rate. So if I come into work that day and I'm gonna get, according to the contract, time and a half because I'm working that day, guess what? I understand I'm making $15 an hour
For that time you're there.
for that 12 hours for that holiday. And then after that holiday, then I'm gonna go back to my $10 because it's no longer a holiday. So, but I do bank it. So if you wanna say,
That bank what?
because I'm working, I still get the 12 hours of holiday pay added to my holiday bank.
That's paid, right? That's paid out?
The physical
That's not
hours
banked.
are paid, yes.
If it's paid out, then you wouldn't have a bank.
Yeah.
You're-
No,
they're-
the accrual.
They're
No,
doing both.
they're putting another 12
Both.
in the bank is
They're
what
getting
I'm,
paid at time and a half, and
So that's
they're
what's weird.
banking it at the same time.
they're getting the
Who
holiday
came up with
paid.
that?
Sir, I don't know. I'm just explaining the way that it is right
We know,
now.
we
and
think we know who came
trying
up
to
with it, but
convey to
they're not
you
around anymore.
what is there.
The 12 hours that we accrue goes into that bank that so no matter if you work it or not, you get that 12 hours.
Right.
To go into your holiday leave.
Right.
But if you're actually working, and that's the way I understand it, like you said
I
it,
explained it.
for the first 12 hours of the day, if I'm making $10 an hour, for the first 12 hours a day of a holiday, I'm making $15 an hour, and then for the last 12 hours
You're
of the day,
making
I'm making $10 an hour.
But the way,
They're coding coding that last 10 hours as holiday benefit, which it's just a code. They're not. It's not an actual benefit because you're getting paid to work your shift.
yeah, you sure,
So
sure,
that's why we're
it's-
saying where's the 3.5 times coming from?
But what they're saying is that they're paying you twice for your holiday, your 12 hours. That they're paying you for the hours, the 12-hour holiday.
Physically worked.
They're putting cash in your
In your
paycheck.
paycheck.
Plus, they're paying you time and a half on top of that. So they're paying you $25 for the 12 hours.
Right.
Is
That's my
that what
understanding.
happens?
Plus, you get 12 hours in the
It's not
bank.
3, but it's not 3.5. No, it's already there. What he's saying.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in caucus because that's not the way we
And I'm-
figure.
I'm-
It's 2.5 times.
But we do agree, though, everyone understands at this point the time and a half and the banking of the hours and the separation, that those hours are not being frozen or, if you're making $10 at that time, we're going to pay those hours at $10. Everyone understands at this point that upon separation, whatever rate of pay
Right.
you're making.
It's just like
so-
vacation. And sick leave. You earn it at this rate, and when you retire in 25 years, you get paid at that rate. That's part of that process that happens. And what you're trying to do with the holiday pay is take that natural increase that happens over the years of service and freeze it in time to one point.
And where in 143 does it show that we should be paying out holiday anyway?
I'm not saying holiday. I'm just saying sick leave and vacation. So that happens there. Holidays, something you guys, the parties agreed to before we got involved on it, because that, as long as I know,
Long
this is the
before I
way it's
got
been.
involved too.
Yeah, so this is the way it is. You're saying it's 3.5 times. I don't see it 3.5 times. These guys are gonna have to show me a pay stub to where they're getting paid 3.5 times. And so we can work through that, I guess, but I just don't see, I mean, just to hear, I mean, just to hear it sounds pretty amazing.
It's a pretty rich benefit.
That's what I said.
It's a very rich
Exactly what I
benefit.
said. I said, that's incredible. But that's what's happening, okay?
But that's what they're saying,
Well,
that's what you're saying is what
apparently,
happened.
they're getting paid, you know,
That's what
they're,
happened last time.
ordinarily, what happens is you have your
You guys can
hourly
grab some-
rate, your hourly
check-
rate of
grab
pay,
and check
okay?
that. That's what-
You have your hourly rate of pay, whatever it is, okay? That includes your base pay and your add-on pays, and it's converted to an hourly rate of pay, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
okay. Then, there's a holiday, and the city says, we're gonna pay our employees, you know, a shift, 12 hours for firefighters, of that hourly rate as a holiday benefit, okay? And so if you're not scheduled on that holiday, if you miss the holiday, you're gonna get paid, you know, the 12 hours because it's a holiday. It's a holiday benefit.
No, if they're physically not, yeah, no. If they're physically not here, they receive the same pay code at one time, but then they bank it to take it a later date. It's when they're physically working that the time and a half comes into play.
Then I'm
If we
That's-
could, if we could,
confused.
can we
Confused
just
as to how it's-
caucus for a minute and I can bring back the directions for everybody to kind of see so we're on
We
the
probably
same
need to look at
page.
some pay
Yeah, yeah,
stubs.
Because
yeah.
the
No, we're not
holiday
gonna
is
solve this
central-
over
the
the
holiday
next
is
hour or
central
two,
to
but.
everything.
Yeah, I was under the impression that, like with most cities that I've dealt with, and probably Rick as well, because I do a lot of this with him, the guys at work get paid for that, and they get paid a time and a half, you know, while they're there, and then they get to bank the day because they're not off. And the guys that are off just get continually paid, but they also bank the time, you know, they get their regular paycheck.
And that's really all I was trying to describe, that what I'm used to seeing
Right.
is that you have your hourly rate for firefighter, which includes base plus subs, converted to an hourly rate. And if city has authorized a holiday, they get 12 hours. The suppression, the admin people get 8, but they get 12 hours at that hourly rate as a holiday pay. You don't have to, you know, you're not at work. You just get 12 hours. You're not at work. You get 12 hours of pay.
Well, you get your normal
If you-
paycheck because you're scheduled hours.
I'm sorry?
That normal scheduling of the hours because you're on
You
and
don't
off.
work. You just
Yeah.
don't hit that. You don't
Right.
hit the schedule. You're off. You're just off. So you get paid 12 hours and you're not at work. You're getting an extra 12 hours of pay and you're not at work.
But it's not
If-
extra.
It's a holiday benefit.
The holiday, the extra is the hours that you earn and put in a holiday bank. for
Well, and
time
that's, so
off.
let me, so then if you do work on the holiday, I often see you'll get paid your regular hourly rate for having worked those hours. Sometimes it's at time and a half,
Yeah.
which means you would either get 2 times, you know, or 2.5 times, depending on if you use time and a half.
Right.
Okay, that's what
Right.
I usually see.
But that's because of the holiday that's being banked. The
No,
time
no,
off.
it's not because, it has nothing, I haven't even said anything about the banking, okay? That's the normal schedule, that's a normal protocol that I see, I think you see it too, where if you don't work, you get the holiday hours. If you do work, you get the holiday hours plus the hours that you worked, which will result in either 2 or 2.5 times your rate of pay for working on the holiday. What I'm hearing here is that on top of that, you get some hours banked in a bank on top of that.
Well, that happens all over though.
I've never seen that anywhere
Yeah, it happens in
else.
Brownsville.
I haven't seen that.
But you know, it's just a mechanism of the fire service, because you have your schedule a year out. You know what you're gonna work and what you're not gonna work. You know what holidays you're gonna be off and what holidays you're gonna be working. So those paychecks are the same. There's no extra pay, or you don't get paid for that holiday. You just get a straight paycheck. If you come to work and you're physically there the day of the holiday and you're not off on vacation or sick, then that individual would get paid time and a half for the holiday time, and they would still have the day off accrued, the 12
And what
hours.
about the bank day?
Right.
What about it? What about the bank day? That's an extra hours that are banked, that the city is incurring a liability on.
Yeah,
I mean, and I understand there's something about that you use the base, not the hourly, okay, so I don't know.
we'll caucus on it. Yeah, we'll just caucus
Yeah,
on it.
I mean,
But now we understand a little
We
bit
need to
what,
get our facts straight on it.
Yeah.
I think that there is agreement that there is a holiday bank that is killing us, okay? And that's what we're trying to get control of. I don't know how many hours are in that bank. I don't know if the hours in that bank all have the same dollar value. It doesn't sound like they do. It sounds like they have a dollar value depending on what rank the employee sits at.
17.
that's accurate. That's correct.
You
It's
know,
like vacation
so
days or
yes.
holidays.
You have
Vacation days or sick
1,000 or
days.
whatever, 1,000 hours in this holiday bank that is an accumulation of the fire department's bank. And each individual employee's hours are all worth different amounts of money.
Correct.
Okay, and they're never going down, they're only going up if they, you know, promote.
Versus the 240. That's not taken.
So that bank is just growing in value. It's a growing liability for the city.
Yeah, part of the mechanism that probably started that was here in Alice, they're confronted with staffing shortages. For a city this size, their staffing is pretty limited. For the last 15 years that I've been involved with Alice, their staffing hasn't grown at all that I can see any kind of sizable. And anytime they get more people, there's retirees or people leaving. So that's part of the mechanism of you know, how they're paying people and why they're, you know, because we haven't even discussed the issue of a guy being off. Say he calls in sick or has a vacation day for a holiday, then the person you call in would be, if all time is physically at work, that's at time and a half for the full 24 or now 48 hours. Well, yeah.
12 hours.
Huh?
For, you talking about holiday premium?
No. I'm just talking about FLSA. If you get called in on an overtime shift, your shifts are 24 hours. Your, how do you describe it?
Tour duties,
The
48.
tours and duties are 48 hours. So I'd be a 48-hour tour duty at time and a half.
Well, it's a sliding scale of time and a half. So the more hours you work, the less hourly rate you get.
Is that in your contract?
That's
They follow
FLSA.
207K exemption. That's a whole other conversation. Can we stick to the holiday?
Yeah, well,
for
I'm just
now,
saying,
please?
everything seems a little more complicated here, and it doesn't necessarily. We'll caucus over this one, I guess.
Okay.
So number 18, sick leave,
Sick leave,
and vacation, 19.
we're proposing just keeping the same language. I think y'all had the payment of sick leave upon separation. Well, you're already following it in accordance with chapter 143. With section 1, it states it.
Yeah, okay.
Vacation leave, I think we'll leave off right now, depending on if we meet with holiday leave, whatnot. We don't want to have that one tied up as a TA.
Okay, so you want to leave that open?
Yes.
Please.
Bereavement leave, I know we had talked about that a little. We defined tour of duty, which was, 48 hours, starting at 8 a.m., working 48 hours straight as a tour of duty. And then a shift is 24 hours starting at 8 a.m. or 24 hours later. So 2 consecutive shifts make a tour of duty, just for simplicity matters.
Okay, we'll discuss that. pension benefits, leave alone?
I believe we could TA that. We didn't have anything, and y'all didn't either, I believe. Yes.
Okay,
Physical fitness, we're willing to discuss it in a subcommittee. We're still kind of trying to understand what the city's trying to accomplish. And
okay.
uniforms, leave the same.
It left, we didn't really. put
No,
it
there
in.
was nothing in there that y'all changed.
Okay,
Staffing, we're proposing leaving the same language as the old contract.
okay,
Temporary duties and higher classification, we're proposing leaving the same language in the old contract, but under section 4, which I believe it's under the old contract, which we're willing to suspend it for the 3-year contract, but no later than September 30th, 2021. And then help
we just leave
offset
it
costs.
suspended.
Yes, help offset cost.
Okay, we'll caucus on that.
The callback policy, we pretty much left the old language, just added to account for the new schedule of 4896.
Okay, let us look at that.
Contract grievance procedure, pretty much the same language. I think we left in there that section 2 addition. We cut section 3, and then we also cut, I believe it is step 2. It was, I believe, 15 days, and we put it just that way. It'll be 10. Everything will be 10 business days.
Okay, we'll look at that.
Miscellaneous provisions, leaving the same as the old language in the contract. And then the savings clause, y'all didn't have anything on that, I believe.
Okay,
And then, like I said, we just added the 2 definitions. Shift, 24-hour period starting at 0800 and ending 24 hours later. And a tour duty, a 48-hour period starting at 0800 and ending 48 hours later. 2 consecutive shifts make a tour duty.
so a shift is 24, and what is 12 now?
Civil service day,
What?
a civil service day. So, in one shift,
So
there's
is
2
it like
12-hour.
Is it a half shift, or is it
It would be a half shift and then a quarter of your tour duty.
Mhm.
So each shift has 2
You're
12-hour
proposing
days.
to call a shift a 24-hour period instead of a 12-hour period, and then just the 12-hour period would be a half shift.
Well, shifts are always 24 hours. And then what they're saying is that because they went to 4896, the shifts remains the shift. It's a 24 hour. They're just, I guess, defining it there. 24 hours starting at 8 a.m. and ending 24 hours later.
Oh, 12 days is often called a work day, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
civil
It's a
service
day.
work day.
It's a civil service
So
work
it's a
day.
work day.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's in here.
So, I mean, we can call it that.
Yeah, that's
Civil
right. A
service
shift
workday
is,
is 12.
I'm used to a shift being 12 and a 24, excuse me, and a work day being
12.
2 12s.
Two
Yeah,
12s.
exactly. Well, a work, a
shift
work
is
day
2
is,
work days.
yeah.
2 work days.
Yeah.
2 work days.
So the
Perfect.
tour duty's 4 work
Right,
days.
2 work. So a work day is 12. We're on the same page about
Correct.
that.
Right.
And a shift is 24.
And then they're just making a tour of duty.
Tour duty will be
which
the
is the
48,
48
which is
hours.
based on the fact,
Our new schedule.
the type of schedule that you're on.
Correct.
it doesn't sound like you would have any problem including the term, you know, a work day to be
12 hours.
12 hours. Is that the main thing on that one? I noticed, I can't. All the other stuff we had in there was okay.
Yeah, we didn't find anything.
Okay. Well, let us visit on that one, but it sounds like we're pretty close. All right.
Question on Article 9, we were talking about volunteer department, guys. It's my understanding that we just clarified, Section 2 kind of clarified what we were talking about, that because we're saying that we're just saying that we could use volunteer firefighters if necessary, but it wouldn't affect anything we have now. They wouldn't replace full-time people. And does that does it happen right now? Do we get help from some of the outside volunteer fire departments when we need assistance?
We have mutual agreements with them to where mutual aid agreements to where if we have a grass fire, say we need a tanker, we can call Ben Bolt and
Or
they'll send it.
large incidents and house fires or something. Yeah, we call on outside agencies. I mean, usually the closest ones that we have around here are volunteers. I mean, there are times that we reach out to other paid departments, but it just depends on what the incident is.
We use Corpus, Ingleside,
Kingville.
Kingville. Also.
See, the problem with that language in Section 2 of Article 9, it leaves it open. And we're having this issue right now in another city just south of here, where a department head has allowed the volunteers to subsidize the staffing of the proper staffing of the department for so many years now that it's gone to a point where it's going to take a lot of money to get it back to where it needs to be. And that's why I kind of prefaced the staffing here in Alice. The staffing hasn't increased in the last 15 years that I know of. And anytime you say you've added staffing, it's staff that's added to fill a vacant place created by somebody retiring or leaving. So you guys have what, 26 guys, 26 firefighters? That's kind of been the number since the first time I ever came down here. And granted, collective bargaining only started about 10 or 11 years ago, because I was the representative when all that happened, and those were the numbers then. So,
but we also, I mean, population hasn't grown; it's actually decreased also.
But to even state that the staffing that you have now meets what the population needs that you have is kind of, you know, if you look at it, depending on what numbers you're going to use, you know, you can use NFPA as a standard. You can use, and that's what normally we use, and the types of rigs that you have comparatively to the population density, that gives you your percentage and the recommendation what NFPA is. And nothing like that really gets looked at until something happens, and you know, some tragedy happens, whether it's civilian or firefighter or sometimes both. And so, we need to work together and come up with a problem, a way to solve this problem. Volunteers are not the way to do that. Volunteers are not beholden to anybody. They have no liability. They have no skin in the game. When they're called upon, they can pretty much tell a person to step off. In those terms, or a lot more colorful terms. And I've seen it happen at the scene of fires. I've been in Mission when that's happened. And Mission no longer uses volunteers for that very reason. So, I mean, for us to agree to something like that would be kind of the firefighters taking a step backwards. Now, they already do. When I was talking to them about this particular issue, they do have the assistance of some volunteers sometimes, but it's nothing they can count on. And adding this language to their contract would not increase that at all.
It seems like if we were able to do that, and if we had some volunteers, then they'd be closer related to you guys and trained by you guys too.
You've not been around volunteers much, have you?
No, I haven't.
I
These guys, I mean, you guys have. I mean,
Yeah.
Have you had any issues working with the volunteers that have come over and assisted in the past?
You have your issues. I mean, you have the ones that aren't, you know, well, let's just take, for example, an interior fire tech. I mean, you have volunteers that won't do that because they don't have to keep up the, just one example I can think is like clean shaving. We're supposed to be clean shaved right here for our mastiff. A lot of volunteers don't. So therefore, I mean, so in essence, they don't have the same tactics as we do. And like what Ralph is saying, like when he said you can't depend on those, it's not that when the volunteers around here for the most part are great, but when you call for them, there's no guarantee they're going to show up. So there's not that. That's what he was trying to say in by saying, well, you can't count on them.
and you have, just putting this language is not going to make it any more real for the firefighters. They're already using them to some extent. So I wouldn't recommend them putting that language in their contract, only because it weakens their position in when their chief or anybody asks for staffing, number one. Because everybody has this mentality, oh, you can rely on the volunteers. Case in point, I mean, Edinburgh used to have the largest volunteer fire department in Texas, and I'd probably say probably a lot of the United States. They had 160 volunteer there. Sean saw the need for the population there, that they'd outgrown the volunteer. So in the past 3 years, since they adopted 143 and went into a meet and confer area, they've increased their staffing from 22 when it started in 2014 to, I think currently they have about 48 or 52.
They had 22?
They
And
had.
then they had the volunteers, though.
No, those were paid. They went from, they had 160 volunteers, and they said, no, we need to have full-time people. So they went to 22 full-time. And then from the last, was that 14? For the last 4 years, they've gone to 48 or 52 paid professional full-time firefighters. So, I mean, and that's the problem that they ran into was.
You said that's Edinburgh, though, right?
Yeah. That was the.
I guess my question is by saying, because you said that they wouldn't take the place of staff people.
And it says so in section 1.
What is the vision of us having?
That if we needed to have some volunteers that we could count on that were here locally, if we needed that, they wouldn't take the place. I mean, section 1 clarifies that. And right now, if we needed to, under section 1, we could still have volunteers. We're just trying to put some little bit more structure to it that says under the supervision and control of you guys. You know what I mean? That's what we were trying to do on Article 9. It seemed like it was kind of an easy one that we could agree on simply because it's not prohibited right now. And so if we put structure.
By adding that, that's just solely to help us out on.
Yeah. You know, and it was, because it's not prohibited right now, but it's almost to put a little bit more.
Well, it's
the
not
concern-
been challenged, is what it's not been. There's no language allowing volunteers, specifically in the collective bargaining agreement, to participate in firefighting activity. Under 143, to be a 143 firefighter and have a 143 department, you have to hire individuals in compliance with that statute. None of the volunteers have gone through any of that hiring process to be part of that group of firefighters that are hired in compliance with that. So I don't want to argue that point.
Yeah.
What I hear is you want to try and develop some sort of crew that you can count on. You cannot count on volunteers because of the mere fact that they're volunteers. There's no way to force them. You can give them pagers.
I'm trying to make it a better situation. If we do need to have some volunteers, we could do it under here.
You have them right now. They kind of come in and help right now.
I know, but we don't know if they're
and these
trained.
guys-
We don't know if they train properly. We don't know any of those things.
This doesn't give you the, this doesn't
Well,
give you the authority.
here,
to
it clarifies it. It allows our guys to say, here's how we do it. And it allows our guys to work better with them if we even have them. This just gives us the opportunity to kind of clarify it. I mean,
That language does not allow for any kind of training or specific authority.
Well,
These
but
individuals,
we
these
would-
officers,
we would want to have that.
but that's not what that language does.
And they're going to be under supervision and control of classified personnel, these guys.
So have you ever run into the situation where you've given a order to a volunteer firefighter and they politely tell you to go pound sand, or they're not going to do that?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest issue that we've had is what I just stated, you know, tactic-wise.
Yeah.
And we pretty much know when we call on outside agencies, which ones, what their,
What their capabilities are, and
Yeah.
what their willingness to do, and what their deployment capabilities are. Like Annaville's an ESD that's just south of this area. And Annaville, you know, they're high-speed, low-drag when it comes to quote-unquote a volunteer, because they have a lot of paid. They're a combination department. And they actually run in with Corpus quite a bit, and they have a lot of issues that they're dealing with Corpus right now. And actually, they're going to be dealing with Robstown a little bit. So there's a lot of that there. I don't think what you have right now with the volunteers helping out, because we talked about this. I talked with Mark about this on the way out. He says, well, they're helping now. So this language that you think allows them to have better training over them, how often do you guys train your own guys right now?
as far as.
Like fire ground tactics and, you know, stuff that you would normally do as instructors, and
Well, I mean, we train.
improving your game.
We train refreshers and stuff, you know, on every shift on the daily that we're there. As far as going over the basics, when we have new guys come on, is when, like we have right now. But as far, you know, if what you're getting at is when we're training, you know, we're trying to train on something.
Right, you guys train. Are volunteers normally brought into that?
No.
Have volunteers ever been trained by you guys?
Maybe on a couple instances. I know we have classes sometimes that we bring in, and we do extend it out to other departments, but those aren't the classes we're putting on. Those are outside agencies coming in.
And do you know whether or not the volunteers that you have are certified under the state fire marshal and fireman's process of certification,
I'm sure
or
there's
Texas
some of them.
Commission?
I'm sure there's some of them, but definite, don't know how many.
So, you know, the only time I've seen language are when cities try to push volunteers in a paid department. It's when somebody finds an idea, and they have an idea that, oh, well, we can tap into the monies that are with TIFMAS and different organizations that kind of subsidize and help subsidize volunteer fire departments. And you know, I sit on the TIFMAS board for the Texas State Firefighters Association, and you know, I'm involved with some of that money allocation. And you know, TIFMAS is kind of wise to how that works, and why some of these paid departments want to say, oh yeah, we got volunteers so we can tap into that funding. But that's coming to, you know.
That's not what we're thinking of.
No, I'm just saying that's what happens a lot of times when I see language like this in a contract. And I just, you know, I think it's important that I let.
I have two questions, if you wouldn't mind, just
Yeah.
for my understanding. How many firefighters currently with Alice Fire Department are volunteers in other departments?
Yeah, maybe a couple.
A couple, a handful?
2 to 3 maybe.
2 to 3. And how many firefighters currently with Alice Fire Department are chiefs or volunteer departments? Just Matt.
I don't know what his position is anymore, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Just
I
who?
was just curious.
And
One of the guys used to be a assistant chief.
Mondo's not anymore.
Mondo's not there anymore.
Pat Thomas.
Pat Thomas. Okay, I was just curious.
What we're looking at is Section 1 doesn't prevent volunteers to helping. Section 2 kind of makes it, restates a little bit, but talks about the supervision, the control. The idea would be if there were going to be some set organization of volunteers, that there would be something in place to be able to have regular training, to know you guys better, because that's who they would be working with. And if does that necessarily all that has to be spelled out in Section 2 or not? Because it could still happen under Section 1. If you scratch Section 2, then and I guess if you want to scratch, that'd be fine, because then we would still want to create a structure for it if it ever got to that.
And is that under the old language also?
Section about which one?
Which
Creating a structure for it?
which Section 1 are you going off of, your proposal or our old language?
Well, Section 1, yeah, it's just, Section 1 is the same. It is agreed and understood that no time the permanent regularly assigned duties and position of a paid certified firefighter will be filled by a volunteer. We have the permanent and regularly assigned duty, so if there was a volunteer fire department, they could still assist when we needed to assist. That would be the first, instead of going out to somewhere outside of here, that would be the first people that we would look for. And to me, it would make sense that we would want somebody who we would know, who we've trained with a little bit, had an organization and a structure to offer that type of training.
So,
It's not meant to replace.
so in essence, if we did have some kind of volunteers, I guess those would be there. That way, we don't have to call back guys in to come work.
No, not necessarily. No, it would be more like, the idea is if let's say some of the retired firefighters recently retired that wanted to come help too, and they would be able to be those persons that you could, that if it wanted to be created, I mean, somebody would have to want to do that. But that's the idea behind Section 2. It's not to do anything else, like do away with our fire department and make it all volunteers, or trying to look for grants a certain way to say that we have a volunteer fire department. It's to better assist you guys. And if we needed to word that language a little bit different under Section 2, we can look at it.
Now I know we're gonna,
Yeah.
or hopefully meet with a subcommittee for physical fitness. Are they gonna be held to the same standards as us on physical fitness?
I don't know. I mean, that would be something that whoever decided that, I would assume that the way it works is you guys in the training, with the training skills, along with the fire chief, would come up with something to help with the training to assess physical fitness or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be in here, but it's not something that we're starting.
Yeah.
So what is the problem that article, specifically 9, your version is addressing?
Oh, well, clarification. I mean, we wanted to clarification that if we could have volunteers as long as they don't take the duties of a regular paid firefighter, and making sure that everybody knows for you guys that they're going to be under supervision and control of you guys.
Okay, so that's what the reasoning behind that article is. So using that, that description, what do you do to a volunteer that refuses to do an order? Or
Same
follow?
thing you would do to any other volunteer, I guess, that we're using right now. We
Nothing.
wouldn't use them. We wouldn't use them anymore. But I would say that, and you guys know this better than I do. We have some recently retired firefighters that want to come help, don't they? Is that true? Have y'all heard? Maybe not every day, but as a volunteer. I mean, that seems to be like, and if we needed something on the support level, maybe not necessarily with some other things, but on a support level, we needed some people to come in. That could be helpful also in an emergency situation. People that have experience, we just don't want to preclude somebody from coming in and helping, and we don't have to rely on an outside city's volunteer or a rural area's volunteer. It'd be somebody that you guys know.
So what I'm hearing, Michael, is that you want a local City of Alice volunteer group. That's what you want to try and develop.
What I would like to see is if we have people that want to do that and want to volunteer, and that they should be able to volunteer here and help our guys out.
Okay. So let's just say
And right now they can.
hypothetically, well, obviously they can. They can go join a fire department, volunteer fire department somewhere, because they use them from time to time on certain fires. But aside from that, let's just say hypothetically you get 3 volunteers and they staff a fire engine for a fire. And at that fire, something happens and somebody gets injured or dies. Who's responsible for those individuals?
I don't know. Would they be staffing at one of our fire
Well,
engines?
it's hypothetical.
Right. I mean,
because
that's
the language you're stating here says that you don't want any of these firefighters to take the job of another 143 firefighter, paid firefighter, right?
Yes.
But essentially, that's what a volunteer could do. You don't want it to happen, but it could happen, especially if we haven't backfilled the vacant spaces and then something happens, an emergency, and you have guys deployed, and then you have a reserve, and then a fire breaks out. They call the reservists come in, the volunteers, they staff a unit, and they go to they respond to a fire. Hypothetically, somebody gets hurt or injured or dies, who's responsible?
Who's responsible right now?
Well, the city's responsible.
No, for the volunteers. We have volunteers.
That's my point exactly. If the firefighters were to use this contract, you guys were to use this contract, you're kind of creating in my opinion, you're creating a culpable event.
Okay, then
something that could harm.
This language was meant to clarify one. If it gets struck, and then nothing precludes volunteers from helping. But what we're trying to do is make it a little bit safer for people and a little bit safer for our guys, where we have, they're closer related to us. They'd be here. They'd be people that we know, or our guys know, and have training. I just don't see why the hang up on that.
Hypothetically, you think that could be reached and achieved if you were to hire more staffing?
If we were hiring more, we can't afford more staffing. And I mean, I know you're telling us, what do we have right now? How many?
With the 3 that got added on today,
27?
28, including the fire marshal.
27. 28 with fire
I have
marshal.
a question. Are the volunteers listed as additional insureds in your policy with the risk pool? They are, so they're covered.
Well, not right now currently, but they would be. We do have coverage for volunteers, like those
You
that
do
do
have
the
coverage for
library,
volunteers.
those that do the animal shelter, other things, yes.
So there's provision
There's
for
provisions
liability
for
exposure
liability. And
for
actually,
volunteers.
there's its own classification for volunteer firemen or reserve police officers.
So that's not a concern. Okay.
And just for clarity, Michael, the language in Section 9 that you guys, Article 9, Section 1, is considerably different from what's in the contract currently and what is being counter-proposed by the firefighters today. And Section 1 of the proposed firefighting volunteer fire department says the city agrees that at no time will the permanently regularly assigned duties of the position of paid certified firefighter be filled by a volunteer who has not been incorporated into the classified service in accordance with Chapter 143 Texas Local Government Code. And the current language says it is agreed and understood that at no time will the permanent regularly assigned duties and positions of a paid certified firefighter be filled by a volunteer. That's a little different. But anyhow, we understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it seemed like the old 9 was a little bit more loose, and the the current I is a little more strict on section 1, right? Okay.
Yeah, this is all linked.
Okay, so what's open is four, 9,
9,
11, 12, 14,
16,
16 and 17, because they're kind of tied together.
19,
19, 20,
22,
22, 24,
25,
25. Yeah, 25,
26.
26. 27, tell me again, what's different in 27?
I know y'all had proposed,
Yeah, with the numbering changed on these.
Yeah, well, I fixed the
Fixed
fact
it.
that we left out some
Okay.
numbers, and I fixed that, and I sent
I
it
know
back,
when-
and then
when-
it came.
y'all's proposal in section 2, you added that little sentence on the bottom. I believe we kept it in there.
On the grievance article,
Yes, and then section 3, we,
subject to this grievance procedure except as otherwise provided, is that?
section 3 we took out. I mean, we feel that's not a contract issue for all those.
Um, Okay, well, tell me about what your concern is about section 3, because I think it's just confirming. Well, first of all, we haven't had any contract
No.
grievances that I can recall, unless there's been some that I'm just not
None
aware
that I
of.
know. Well, one.
I think they've all been
They've all been
resolved.
There was
resolved
one.
at the administrative
They get
level.
resolved at the beginning stages, and I think this one, we just wanted to make clear that on 3, the city's proposal is just, we just want to make clear, this is a contract dispute protocol, not a, civil, a disciplinary.
Anything else
Huh?
outside of,
Yeah, I mean, that one would be, the discipline issues would be run through a regular 143 process.
Mhm.
So what is your concern about having that language in here?
Well, just that it hasn't been a problem yet, and, I mean, if it is one of these issues, it has to go before the association grievance committee before it goes to the next step. So, I mean, I would say that's trusting us to realize that it's not a contract grievance issue.
And is that the only change?
That, and then, I believe it is step 2, from the association grievance committee shall within 15 days of receipt. I believe we put 10, that way it's across the board, every step is usually 10 days instead of.
Everything is 10 business days?
Yes.
All right. Okay, but that's the only thing,
Mhm.
that's the main thing on that.
Yeah, there's another 10 that was 15 in step 3 as well,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think we.
Yeah,
added
I underlined it, I didn't just,
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you leave in the language that with these deadlines can be modified by agreement as well?
it was, yeah, pretty much the old language. Maybe extended by mutual consent,
Yeah, where's that?
section 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that one's probably pretty much. Okay, but let me caucus on that. Any other questions about the union proposal?
on the wages, y'all are asking for the, what was that? I missed that.
Article 11,
There we go. Oh,
2% each year, and then we're proposing freezing the step-up pay again to help offset the cost.
Yeah,
Bernard, what's the time and step? What would the time and step be?
y'all have 4 hours still?
Yes. It was pretty much the same language, but just changing the dates to reflect the 3-year contract and suspending it.
What-
2% to this.
Yeah, the first proposal, y'all were at 2% for that. Was that the same proposal?
No, our very first proposal
Yeah.
for wages, it was a 5% increase.
5%. Every year? Or just,
No, it was a 1-year term
Okay.
that we proposed. And it was a 5% with 2.5 added on after each rank.
20 drink.
they have been receiving cost of living, along with other, when a,
Whenever the last cost of living was applied to the city, they received.
okay.
I think that was 14 fiscal year.
But right now, on our contract, if we give employees a cost of living, yeah, it's on here, firefighters, they still get a cost of living, so.
I'm gonna take a caucus and come back.
You wanna?
You ready to caucus?
You got, yeah. Okay. Time is now 2:50 and we're gonna take a recess.
Sign it. Go to your office.
Go to your office.
Oh, I don't know. Yes, I think so.
Yeah.